Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Paz from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me, my co-host, the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. I made it through all of Carnyland on the CW app. I downloaded specially on the Roku, and I must say I was pleasantly surprised. I did enjoy the whole thing.
I got to be honest as well. I watched the whole thing and I binged it. I actually got to be able to binge it basically in one day. Basically, I got through it really quick. That's how much I enjoyed it. I actually really liked it. I thought that Billy came off looking good. For the most part, I just I don't know. I really liked the series. It was really good and kind of better than I thought. More wrestling than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it flowed very well, and if there weren't all those CW commercials, you would have finished it in half a day, I'm
True.
sure. And not that I remember everyone's name, but it really did introduce me to a number of stars whom I want to learn more about, especially those sisters that come from a wrestling family that now have their own.
Oh yeah, Kenzie
And
and Kylie Page. Yeah, they're both
oh yeah,
great.
thanks. I'd love to invite them to the show sometime. Wasn't familiar with the family at all, so I want to learn about that and their promotion and where they're going. So that was really interesting. Um, the guy that's sort of controversial that has his Fight the World promotion, that's kind of, I don't want to give away, spoiler alert, that's back in the good graces of the NWA. He seems really entertaining. And it's interesting that they didn't have, like, in their wrestling at that time, like you had like Tyrus was a big deal. And he's barely on the show at all. EC3 is just like passes through, but he's not the main focus of the show. So I really enjoyed that. It was interesting seeing like Billy Corgan's now wife and running Madame Juju's Tisha, learning about her family and stuff. So it was fun. I would watch the sequel.
Yes, very good stuff. They left it open. Obviously, they should be more seasons, but love some Billy Corgan, love some Smashing Pumpkins. But let's change gears. Let's play a little Russian roulette here. Let's play New Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL. What's going on? The latest with those two.
So first, and I would say this is outside of like, you know, business originating from Japan, especially with a corporation in Japan, is hard to suss out for me. Sometimes I feel like things are done a bit differently, let's just say the least there. But from what I'm gathering, especially from our friend Zach Arnold at Fight Opinion tweeting, it seems like the stock isn't doing that well. Business isn't going great. I just shared on X as we're recording this sort of like a sheet, like an earnings sheet, which was basically showing negative. So something going on there. My understanding is that they lost a sponsor as well that was specific to New Japan, who said that they're not going to sponsor pro wrestling at this time. So all of that being said, New Japan didn't have the best week ever because with their tie-up with CMLL for Fantasticamania 2024 Lucha Libre USA, everyone figured that in San Jose they'd be in that auditorium, right, where New Japan runs, and it's about 2,000, 2,400 people. And lo and behold, they're at Mount Pleasant High School in San Jose. So Lucha Blog had shared that Wrestling Observer pointed out that that show got moved from the Civic Auditorium to a local high school because someone else got the date on the building, comedian Hassan Minhaj, who has two shows on that date. So that's kind of weird, you know, that if you're expecting to have a building, did you not sign the contract? Did you not put down the deposit at the time? You know, what happened with something like that? And then you have two international organizations, New Japan, CMLL, as our friend Kevin Kleinrock shared with us last week. I believe it's the Pro Wrestling Revolution promoter. That's the local promoter for this. And somehow in all of this, their ability to hold on to the venue they booked fell apart. So there's a open ticket map at Mount Pleasant. And I just want to note that the tickets aren't cheap for this show. So even though it's in a high school, I'm not sure of the full capacity for this venue, but I counted, I believe, around 550 reserve tickets, and there's bleachers as well, but the tickets aren't cheap. So if they sell it all out, everyone should still do well, but just in terms of perception and so on for a brand, if you're flying people in and people are coming across borders for a show, you would think that it would be something a little bit more high profile than a high school, but sometimes that's just what makes the most sense. So that's that. Then, of course, sort of like in its own world, its own Forbidden Door, is the AEW New Japan team up. So all eyes on that in about a month. So without speculating too much, we'll see what ends up happening. But also, and John, last time we spoke, I hadn't seen any ticket information. I don't know if more came out. If you saw anything, we know on August 30th in DC is Capital Collision, but I haven't seen any more information about ticket sales.
I have not either, oddly enough.
So we're 3 weeks away. I guess as we talked about last time, I haven't seen anything about K1 at the theater at Madison Square Garden yet either. So I'm a little concerned about being able to see that.
Yeah, maybe it's not happening. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just crazy.
Yeah, that's too bad. I guess that in terms of the K1 side, that they'll have to announce some sort of other tournaments to fill that. I haven't been following the machinations of how that all works when you do worldwide tournaments, but I guess that's a story for a different type of podcast.
True. What is going on in TNA? What is going on with Montreal week? Interesting.
Yeah, so I always find, as listeners know, like promotion in Montreal to be fascinating because it's one of those promotions that, one of those markets that if done correctly, and you have local stars, that you could do really well. So in terms of their tickets, which aren't on sale yet, but they're promoting the show in terms of different contests and giveaways. And they've identified, of course, two people that work for them that are part of the local market. Of course, PCO, who's French Canadian. Speedball Mike Bailey. I don't think he's French Canadian. I apologize if I'm wrong. I haven't looked into his genealogy, but obviously a local resident of the area, so nothing wrong with that. But certainly having someone French Canadian to drum up the local business is a tried and true strategy for Montreal, but you really have to have them be a meaningful part of the show. So curious to see what PCAO's role would be by the time Slammiversary rolls around. I don't know if he's positioned as like a title contender, if that would make sense, or just an interesting match on the card. But you can't just have him on the card to be a draw. It has to be something meaningful. Just looking at some of their upcoming shows. So on, let's see here. So on June 28th, Against All Odds, let me see actually if I can have their show. So June 28th, so that's in, sorry, I'm a little bit confused here. June 14th, sorry, in Cicero Stadium, as we've talked about with MLW, who legit sold it out as far as we understand. So looking at June 14th, which is their first day of tapings, it looks like the first couple of rows are gone as of this recording. Now, if we skip ahead to Philadelphia on June 28th at 2300 Arena, their first day of tapings in that loop, looks like the first row and about half of the second row are sold. And again, Montreal isn't yet on sale, so really curious about that one.
Just a little bit of, I guess, reminder here. Mike Speedball Bailey is from Quebec, so French Canadian, I believe he is.
Okay, great. I mean, I have no preference one way or another, but certainly for promotional purposes, I think that would
Makes sense,
work
yeah.
for them. Yeah,
Yep.
to exploit sounds negative, but to maximize that opportunity, if he can. Most people that live there speak French no matter what, but speaking to the French media and really drumming up local business there. So it's interesting in terms of TNA, because often we'll see that they'll have a number of shows on the books, but Cicero Stadium, Philadelphia, Montreal, where do you think things are leaning, John? Do you think that they're going to remain conservative now that Scott D'Amore isn't there, and just keep doing these sort of loops and like a stretch show every once in a while, like they did in Vegas?
Every time I think that, they do more shows. So it's weird. I'm not sure. It seems like they'll be more conservative though without D'Amore. Just I don't really know for sure, but it just seems like I think that's the direction that they'll go. But you kind of never know with them. They might open it up
Yeah,
again.
and I think sometimes like go with it if you have a star that could draw in a particular market. You want to maximize that, but they have certain places that seem to work best for them. In terms of presentation on television, of course, it's always harder to draw the second day, and they always do a double up taping. But of course, for financial reasons, that seems to make the most sense for them.
All right. What about MLW? And are they on a roll or what?
So definitely something going on, in terms of promoting shows. Mike Johnson of PW Insider reports that they're slated to undergo site surveys for potential California venues next month. The promotion is looking to open up new markets later this year, including Canada and the West Coast. No timeline for when they'd like to run that side of the country, but it's long been a goal to get into LA as a market. This was interesting because I didn't realize that it was happening. I figured that they still had the hourly show on beIN Sports. And then sometimes they would call it a season and take a break and then come back, or, calling it Underground instead of Fusion and whatever it may be. But it says now that MLW remains very happy with the new format of 2 big shows per month, 1 free and 1 premium live event. There are no current plans to return to weekly TV, but the option remains open if they find a partner who wants to license a series. So they're always sort of free agents, in that way, even though they have as far as we understand, even though they have the beIN Sports deal, which I don't know how much it pays for certainly, but it seems to be really a key to being on this national network that's lost a lot of penetration, that has low viewership, but that seems to cover some of their costs. So we hear about a forthcoming sellout at Center Stage in Atlanta, which 800 seats, but they had a very, very small reserved seat set up, and the rest is general admission. So hard to tell at the moment. Then in St. Petersburg on July 12th, looking at the structure of seats in terms of some rows are opened and then the ones behind them are closed. So at the moment, I would say the first row, except for a ticket or 2 individually, are sold out. Some of the second row, and then some of the aisleway. And let's see what's next. Summer of the Beast, New York City on August 29th has about half of the first row is still available, with some spotty sales here and there. And Lucha Apocalypto, which is their return to Cicero Stadium on November 9th, still has a fair amount of first row tickets available, and maybe a few seats here and there sold beyond that. So I don't know if it's like what's it called, like bust down the doors, or like whatever it may be in terms of ticket sales, but they certainly have had wins that they've been celebrating, and there seems to be things are heating up a little bit more for MLW, especially now that they're beyond litigation, that they have their settlement in place and focusing on promotion. But the show at Cicero Stadium was certainly a win, and smart that they're returning there in November, even though this one doesn't look like they could celebrate the most ticket sales in a day or whatever it may be. I don't think it's their hottest start, but it's not till November, which is quite a ways away.
What is going on in the world of GCW? Very interesting summer coming up for them, I think.
Yeah, so most interesting to me, and I put my money where my mouth is, as they say, I'm going to Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11.
Yes.
As soon as I heard this announced, I was like, definitely very interested. There's been a lot of on the Bloodsport show. I loved UWFI, as obviously Josh Barnett did. Interestingly, Brett Lauderdale was not a viewer of UWFI the first time that we asked him about it. So kind of from different trees, different fandoms, but should be a lot of fun. I think Bloodsport, when I would think about this was before even AEW, like different types of wrestling that could work, like UWFI style just seemed very unique that it could work, even though when people think about like shoot fighting, right, like they might think about more MMA, but I think there's something there still for pro wrestling fans to digest it in a different way. I guess the question is like, I'm sure we can look this up, but like who owns the Bloodsport IP? Meaning that I think it was GCW that had first announced Bloodsport, right? It was going to be originally with Matt Riddle, right? There might have been a shows run under that banner. I'm not sure, but
Yep.
But it's really Josh Barnett's thing for the most part, and I guess utilizing, GCW for ticket sales and everything that goes into logistics, except that there's a show in Japan that's independent of GCW. So interesting to see how this relationship continues to evolve and grow together, or if at some point it might be best to like branch out or do it separately, as Brett Lauder was talking about in terms of like capacity for growth of something like Bloodsport, as GCW is running so many shows. Doesn't mean that there's anything happening imminently. I'm just pontificating. John, would you consider going to this show?
Where in Brooklyn is it? I love Josh Barnett and I love that style, but getting to Brooklyn for me sometimes, it takes me a couple hours from Jersey because the traffic is nuts.
So I get off Atlantic Terminal, so it's a 10-minute walk from Barclays.
Oh, okay. I always drive up there, and the BQE, forget about it. Or even if you have to go to the Belt, either way, it's just crazy up there.
Yeah.
I actually want to go to the House of Independence show right down the street from me in Asbury Park. That's the show I want to go to.
Oh, nice. The big news, as it was termed at the time, but it seems like a cool little venue.
Yeah, return to Asbury Park. Hell yeah. Very, very cool. What else is going on in the world of GCW?
So my perception right now, meaning in terms of looking at tickets that are on sale, certainly through Eventbrite and for the Chicago show, looking at that dedicated page. So that doesn't cover everything necessarily. I didn't look if they're on sale already, like how Toronto and Montreal are doing and everything like that. But for the most part, like I said with MLW, that it's nothing is, the barn doors aren't being blown off anywhere or whatever it may be. Like the show that they have upcoming, of course, that's doing the strongest is the first death match show in New Jersey, or the first of that weekend of the two. I guess that's the Tournament of Survival one, as opposed to the Cage of Survival. That one's doing quite well, as it usually does. But the other shows, it's kind of looking weak, honestly. Now, as I always preface it, GCW doesn't always have the biggest first day or first week highest sales. It tends to build and build. Like you'll see Ukrainian Culture Center will be sold out, even though most of the tickets aren't sold the first week or two. It's like as matches are announced, talents are announced, or whatever. So don't take this as a condemnation. I'm just looking at like the market right now. But May 25th, the return to Talia Hall, front row is sold out. So that's that show will have taken place by the time you hear this for the most part. We're recording the day before. But the second row, third row, seated balcony, all have at least 6 tickets remaining, probably more. You can only on this platform look at 6 tickets, but some of the small boxes, opera boxes, are sold out. So that means like maybe if it's like one box that holds 6 people or 4 people, I'm not sure. The show, let's see here, Paranoid in Columbus, Ohio. You could get 10 or more second row ringside tickets. Balcony reserved just has a couple tickets left, but general admission standing room still remains as well. So that's looking weak to me as well. Tournament of Survival, so that's on June 1st. So again, this one is the strongest on the books right now. You can not get anything closer than 7th row. Well, actually, there's 1 third row ringside, but that's just an individual ticket. 7th row ringside has 10 or more tickets. So having moved 6 rows, that's pretty good. The following day, the Cage of Survival, you can still get a couple second row, but really it's the 5th row ringside. So 4 rows deep. So that's good for a second day show. The Lights Out show in Denver, Colorado, which is taking place on June 14th. That still has 10 or more second row tickets available. The Hit 'em Up in LA. So this is June 15th. So that's about 3 weeks away. They're running hot in LA to date. So we'll have to see how this holds up because it's kind of slow at the moment. Second row ringside has 8 tickets remaining. Third row, fourth row have 10 or more tickets remaining. In Mesa, Arizona on June 16th. Let's see. There are 8 third row tickets remaining, and fourth row ringside has 10 or more tickets remaining. So that has a little while. So I think we'll see maybe through the 4th row sold by the time the show takes place. So that's not bad for them relatively. In Houston, no sleep. So that's Zillow, who is being promoted sort of like as a return to the market. I mean, under GCW banner. June 28th. So that still has plenty of tickets remaining. Second row, third row, 10 or more seats. In Dallas at Gillies on June 29th, the Crime Wave show has 10 or more second row, 10 or more third row, 10 or more fourth row. Let's see. Okay, then there's the swing through Toronto and Montreal. I didn't look at those tickets yet. On July 18th, they're in Louisville, and July 19th, they're in Sauget, Illinois. Due so high. So let's see if we have something yet for those. So I tickets yet, but in Sauget, which is a market that we've talked about, that they continue to grow, that has shown some good signs, but as of now, so we're almost 2 months out, so plenty of time. Front row ringside 6 tickets, second row 10 or more, third row 10 or more. Now on July 20th, let's see, where are they? Indianapolis Marriott. So there's plenty of tickets left, 10 in the first row and beyond.
Nice. Now, as far as some other promotions, and we were talking about NWA before, what is going on? Because they've got territories that they're doing now. Obviously, if you watch Adventures in Carnyland, you kind of see the thought process behind it. But what's going on with NWA? And then talk about the territory system coming possibly back to the business.
So the Crockett Cup, which they had on May 18th, it looked like sales had picked up a lot, or at least tickets distributed. So in about a 400 seat setup, Joe Galley had tweeted a picture about it, and it looked great in the picture. Then on June 1st, they have Back to the Territory. So this is sort of gathering the different talents that they have in the different territories, most of whom that they're featuring do go through the regular NWA show. So a nice thing and a fun thing is that it's a fundraiser for Carnes High School. So the platform that it's on is actually a fundraising platform. So we could see regularly how much money that they've raised. So it was, last time I checked, a little bit over $3,000. So about $300 saved in ticket sales. So just looking at the formal NWA shows before we talk a little bit more about territories. NWA 76. So this is, of course, at the 2300 Arena on August 31st. So, of course, about 3 months away while we tape this, but just a little bit beyond the front row sold. And then, of course, in Dothan at the end of the year, front row and some tickets here and there, depending on the setup, were sold. So interestingly, I came across a local article about a promotion that's not yet part of the NWA, but sort of talking about the territories and maybe that it will be part of the NWA. So Pile Driving Partnership. After a year of riling up fans, an Albuquerque professional wrestling group is set to partner with the Big Dogs by Michael Hoda. Fans cheer and jeer at an April Duke City Championship Wrestling event. Professional wrestling allows fans to indulge in carnage without having to visit the hospital. After a year filled with jumps from the top ropes, combatants gripped in crippling submission holds and deafening screams from a vehement crowd, a local wrestling organization is taking the next step to create a pipeline for up-and-coming local entertainers. Duke City Championship Wrestling, DCCW, is an Albuquerque-based organization celebrating its one-year anniversary and is the brainchild of Fred Slow. Slow, who squeezes in running the wrestling operation when he's not co-hosting a daily sports radio show, says he's amazed a group of about 50 fans and helpers who come out every month to help set up chairs, shoot video, or anything else he might need on hand. We have a lot of really tough individuals that support us. Slow says DCW is now preparing to team up with the NWA. A partnership with DCW could mean a direct path to pros for Albuquerque wrestlers and some special guest stars to come to town. Slow said that if everything goes according to plan, the local production will still go on as usual, but with a little icing on top of that cake. That icing will be the talent of the NWA. Brian Idol, okay, so that's the promoter that I was forgetting his name, and he's a very dynamic and entertaining person in the documentary or the reality show. A national promoter for the NWA tells the paper that they're in the process of evaluating DCCW as a potential territory. I would say to this point, everything has been exceptional. I think both sides see the upside in doing it. Idol says that the hope is that the partnership will lead to famous faces from the world of wrestling. The goal of the NWA on a local event is to present fans with big names, national talent that they otherwise may not get a chance to see in their area. But it's not just the Slow and Idol who are working towards putting Albuquerque on the wrestling map, or MAT. Slow and company transformed the historic El Rey Theater into something unrecognizable. They assemble an entire ring that takes up the majority of the venue's standing room space. Most of the main stage is converted into a VIP section with seats close enough to see every detail of the elaborate matches. DCCW is a local production in its truest form, and the owners literally do a lot of the heavy lifting required to make the operation run smoothly and safely. On any given match day, Slow and his business partners can be found tightening straps and turnbuckles or testing equipment. That community support often results in new jobs, and at least one case, new business partners. Fernando Gonzalez, a co-owner, was a fan at first. He returned one night to the venue after an event was over with the intention of becoming a part of the family. I went back in while everyone's cleaning up and introduced myself to the other members of the group and just asked them for a job, basically. They were more than amenable to seeing if there was a use for me. In hindsight, Gonzalez seems like he's made for his role as announcer. Okay, so he, just an aside, it feels very pro wrestling. So he wanted a job, so he became a part owner, and now he's an announcer.
Yep.
Uh,
Sounds about right.
yeah, not that I'd be opposed to doing it myself, but that is
Right.
very pro
Of course.
wrestling. In addition to wearing sharp suits and yellow aviator-style sunglasses, he has a booming announcer voice that rivals many in show business. Slow's other partners include Joe Singer, better known to fans as the wrestler Hobo Hank, who we mentioned on the show before. He's quite well known in apparently in Albuquerque, as well as Aaron Burnett, co-owner of El Rey. Oh, that's smart, right? You work with I like this guy. He's bringing in
Yeah.
some smart partners. Co-owner of El
Yeah.
Rey, right? So it's the venue, who can be found at the door handing out wristbands. All hands will be on deck on May 25th, not only in honor of the imminent partnership with the NWA, but also to celebrate the one-year milestone. No birthday bash would be complete without surprises. Slow doesn't want to give away too much, but says there will be some fun gimmick matches. Duke City Toys has donated some party favors, and fans are encouraged to bring wrap presents. Okay, I think that that covers it well. But and also the NWA getting out there. EC3 will be defending the belt in Indiana for the first time in more than a decade. Sorry, I'm mixing it up. So EC3 will be defending the belt in Indiana, and Pro Wrestling returns to Indiana for the first time, not the state, the city, for the first time in more than a decade with Evolution, presented by the Allied Powers Wrestling Federation at S&T Bank Arena. Sorry, my geography is getting a little bit messed up. I think this is near Pennsylvania or in Pennsylvania. But so what does this all mean? The NWA is scaling up its territories quick. Like if you forget to blink, right, before there were none. Then there's the one run by Billy Corgan in Chicago. EC3 has the one in Ohio. You have the sisters now have their promotion. You have Joe Kazana in Tennessee. You have this potential promotion. So nothing is quite large potentially, but if the vision is to have a number of territories, they're seemingly continuing to grow.
For sure. And you're right. Indiana, Pennsylvania, the S&T Bank Arena. So that you are correct. What is going on with Limitless? We haven't talked about them recently. What's going on with Limitless?
So I love something like this that they're doing. So as far as I understand, like Maine, Lewiston, Maine, like it's people vacation there. They might spend the whole summer there, depending, maybe they're teachers or their kids are in camp there, whatever it may be. It's a big vacation place. So like you may have people hanging around the town all summer, and then around August 20 something, then people go back to wherever they came from. So smartly, Limitless Wrestling, which has a great roots in Maine, has announced a show at the Coliseum, a fairly large, mid-sized venue where they'll be running a half house in this hockey arena. So kind of ambitious, but I think a smart thing where you have planned well. They should get the local promotion, and it's something that they can build to. So really curious to see, how that works out for them.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, what is the latest? I know we've talked about this a bunch in the show. What's the latest on Triller? What's going on with them and their business? I know our good buddy John Wall Street has been talking about it.
Yeah, so first from John Wall Street, and this sort of covers ground that we've talked about, but just want to reinforce it without raising any alarm or anything. The business lost more than $1 billion between 21 and 23, right? So there's valuations out there. It says $4 billion, and like certainly a company like Amazon lost a ton of money for a long time. Companies like scaling up, but to remember that this business lost more than $1 billion between 21 and 23. We say if and when, because Triller has had its share of false starts before. And because the combined valuation for the two companies, which both lose money and collectively generate just over $100 million last year, AGBA reported $57 million in 23 revenue, is $4 billion. But the stock has 6x'd since the announcement. So like we talked about, it was a penny stock and then it was already over $4 as of the last time I checked yesterday. It was down to just over $2. So it's a really volatile stock for those that know how to play it well. Somebody could have become very wealthy depending on how you invest it, but like it's ping ponging around. So it's one of those that like you have to be super careful of. I did listen to a YouTube video talking about the company by the CEO of AGBA, it was hard to follow. It seemed, I'm not saying that it is, but it seemed like a lot of blither blather, where it's like, he sees making money, all that sort of thing. But the most meaningful thing was that they're moving their offices from, I believe, in China to LA. So it will become, a truer like US company, even though they're on the NASDAQ market. And of course, we know that the Triller people get 80% of the overall stock. So it's really the Triller people that are most in control once this closes. But why are we talking about this again? Because so much of semi-national independent wrestling, and even some of the bigger players, depending on the outlets that they're focused on at the moment, but usually not exclusively, like AEW and New Japan, depending on the market and so on, utilize Fight and Fight Plus at certain points. So when it's a merger like this, where there's a lot of question marks, but potential, it's really important to examine it to understand the potential infrastructure and its impacts on the business.
So there's obviously a lot of businesses that don't make money within the first few years of conception. Obviously, Amazon would be one of them, and now they're worth billions. Somebody, I think it was Trevor Dame, actually, on Twitter, had put out about AEW and how 5 years still haven't made a profit, which is fine. They lost $34 million this past year. Do you think that it's like a sustainable? Let's say if they don't get the TV rights, what about AEW and like their sustainability, and will they be profitable in the future? Seems like they're going to get more of TV rights, so they will go up. They will be profitable. But what's your take on AEW?
Yeah, from what I understand from the beginning, and this is the type of play where you need the financing, of course, which they
Yeah.
have, was to sort of like be like proof of concept over the 5 years, and then like the next deal that they would really earn. But it's kind of weird because when they first did it, they just had one television show, and we know for even like TNA, right? They were profitable once they got a second. What was it? A second show or a second hour? I guess.
Second hour, yeah.
So that was game changer. But for some reason here, that didn't change the profitability of AEW. So I don't know these different deals, but if they were to sign such a deal, then that's whatever X times valuation we're seeing in sports, like at least 1.5 times typically, but their ratings have gone down. There's also a question mark with Warner Brothers Discovery, which apparently is struggling sort of like for profitability. It seems like they'll lose the NBA. So does that mean that they'll step back? Like what we talked about, the article, I think it was in the New York Times, talking about how like USA is basically like a reruns network now, outside of WWE and some original programming. Does TNT, I mean, TNT and TBS are not, they have a lot of rerun programming as well that does well. Maybe they take a step back and are like, okay, we lost the NBA. Should we be more in on AEW? There's talk of maybe they'll bid on the UFC at some point or whatever, or just say, okay, this is sort of a non-growth business, cable television. So let's cut our costs, just focus on the How I Met Your Mother, Law and Order, whatever they have, and just like squeeze as much out of it with less cost, less employees, less need to promote, and so on. So that company will be at a crossroads. AEW, obviously, there's room for cost cutting. Their talent roster seemingly is fairly bloated compared to other companies of similar nature that produce a similar amount of hours of television, or if you look in like a prorated way, like why do they have so many talents? And not to say that's always a bad thing. I think it's good for more people to be employed. Well, if they're not considered employees, but to earn a living that's full time. That's something that we don't want to miss out on. But there's that. There's the giant arena bookings. That seems like something that they're starting to think about, at least, with a residency in Arlington. Maybe they'll be a little bit more conservative on their venue bookings. So those are two things easily that you can start saving money if you need to. But really, in terms of like growth model, I think firstly is to get a strong US deal. And maybe that deal isn't through traditional television. I know that maybe to its detriment, or to his detriment, Tony Khan keeps saying that his partner is WBD, but you really should look around to see who might want to bid on such a thing. If Netflix has WWE, maybe Amazon would want AEW, and AEW doesn't have a tremendous amount of deals right now for worldwide rights. So, that could be, people could access Amazon, worldwide, I believe. So that might be something else to think about, because there's only so many stations that want to put big money into pro wrestling, traditionally over the air or on cable.
Very true. Now let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Lavie, what do you got going on in this crazy world?
So follow me on X, LavieMarg, LavieMarg. Check out my long form articles on LionCubJobSearch.com. And of course, join us on The Business of the Business on LinkedIn.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Lavie. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here and next week for a little business of the business.